Hello and welcome to LifeChurch Online. As you have probably noticed, we are not having our live streaming of our normal midweek service. This is because we are currently having our annual business meeting for LifeChurch International. But don't worry. Instead, listen to this very special LCI podcast episode where we sit down with Reverend Jeff and Brenda Mallory as they share their burden for the Philippines and the great work of Hope Village International that they have started. Next week, we'll be back to our normal midweek service. But now, enjoy this special episode of the LCI podcast. Hello and welcome to the LCI podcast. My name is Justin Hutchison. I'm the online pastor and media director here at LifeChurch. And thank you so much for joining us here on another episode, a special edition episode, because today we are joined by Reverend Jeff and Brenda Mallory. It's nice to have you guys on. How are you feeling?
Thanks.
Thanks
great.
for having us.
Yeah.
We're good.
Excited that you're here in the desert in Arizona. We're so glad that you are here.
It's a beautiful day in the desert.
It's a beautiful desert right now. This is when we talk. In the summertime, we get a little quiet.
Yeah.
But in the winter time, we like to talk our talk. But thank you so much for joining us here today. And we have a very special episode because we get an opportunity to kind of present this need and the solution that you guys are working on, Hope Village International. And how about you just take a moment and just kind of let the viewers know exactly what that is?
All right. Hope Village International was founded in 2018 and is a 501c3 nonprofit foundation that exists to help mostly children who have been abandoned or orphaned. And then we also have in our charter medical. We have a medical clinic, and we're sponsoring medical missions. We've been able to help even prisoners in prison who a lot of foreign countries, they don't take care of their prisoners.
Okay.
So we go in with medical supplies and even soaps and basic things. So Hope Village does a lot of that type of humanitarian, mostly in third world countries.
Okay. And that's located in the Philippines?
Well, there's two foundations.
Okay.
One is located in Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
That is the foundation that is USA-based. And then we have a Philippines-based foundation that is based in Lipa City, Batangas.
Yeah, what you said.
Yep. That's about an hour and a half to 2 hours south of Manila.
Okay.
On the same island that Manila is on.
Cool. Yeah, and then how would you say this all came to be? Because obviously, this was a vision that took place. That you had to have seen like a future in this or an opportunity where you were going to meet that need.
Yeah. So when I married Jeff here in America, he had just come from the Philippines, and I instantly fell in love with the Philippines because of the way the Mallory family talked about the Philippines and their how many years there as missionaries. He was 2 when he went there and 20 when you left, something like that. And so just their love for the Filipino people, I instantly got that. And so when we went to the Philippines in 1995 for the first time, right? 1995?
I think it was that, or 96, 95.
We were traveling there in Manila, and we were at a stop sign, and there were some children begging at our window. And they were about the ages of our children at that time, but they were not clothed. They were obviously hungry. Nobody was taking care of them. That was obvious. And it really bothered me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I feel like at that time the Lord said, well, do something about it. Don't just come over here on this nice little missions trip and be changed for a second. Do something about it. And I feel like at that time the Lord said, build an orphanage. And so in 1996 is when the Lord planted that mandate in me. So, and I can go in to tell you how I became a missionary. I married a missionary. My mom and dad always knew I would do something crazy in the world. My parents weren't afraid to pray crazy prayers for their children. And my mom always told me that I would either be a missionary or something else, doing something else in the world. And then I was raised in a church that was very missions minded.
Nice.
Missionaries all the time. I mean, I would just feel their burden back in the day. And so when Jeffrey came along and he was a missionary's kid and a missionary himself, I don't know, it just all worked. And then when we went back to be missionaries together with our family in 96, I just knew this was something that I was meant to do.
That's awesome.
Well, if I could say, it seems all too easy to ignore the lost children
Yeah.
in our world, because a lot of times they're hidden and you can live your life and never think about them. But when we were little, Dad was tasked with starting the first church in Manila, and the usual suspects that you would, try to get to come to church, business people and doctors, lawyers, or whatnot,
Right.
You think that's what you need to start a church. Yeah. Well, they weren't interested. And so it was a city of 8 million people at the time. And after quite a bit of failure, they went to Smoky Mountain. And Smoky Mountain at the time was the 4th largest slum in the world. And it's a place that defies words. You can't even describe the scenario. But it was tens of thousands, even more, living on trash.
Really?
Literally, not from the trash, but living on the trash. Holes
Wow.
in piles of trash, and that's where they lived. And Dad drove the Sheaves for Christ vehicle, that's the missionary van, up into that mountain of trash. They call it Smoky Mountain because the fires of Smoky Mountain never went out.
Oh, wow.
And anytime you go day or night, there was activity, people just surviving, digging in mountains of trash to find food, clothing, pulling out bits of steel or scraps of wood or plastics or things they could just sell, right? And he picked up children. And some of those children were orphans or abandoned. They were not cared for. And that was my first Sunday school classmates in church there when they started that.
Wow.
And
That's
so I
awesome.
was 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and those kids were the ones that were all we had in church. And eventually they started evangelizing their parents, and we started getting more and more adults, but it started out largely with children. So that was always in our hearts. And when we took my wife to see that very first time, and she'd already had that experience with the Lord telling her that, this is your life's work, that it just hit her, and she was never able to walk away from that and just say somebody needs to do something about that.
Wow.
A lot of us do that.
Yeah.
We see a need and we say, hey, somebody should do something about that.
Right. Someone else should pick up the torch, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And what happened was the first several years, though, life just came at us fast and hard.
Yeah.
And things happened. Brenda's parents both passed away in 2 different fights with cancer. And
Oh, wow.
we pioneered some churches. It was just a lot of stuff happening, children, so we didn't do it, But that
burden's been there.
that burden was
Yeah.
there, and it never left her.
Right. Yeah, and maybe it just takes one experience to just tug at the heartstrings, as they say.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it
to
never
see a
left.
need, and it
Yeah.
never leaves. It's a burden. It hangs
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Yep.
So-
Well, some dreams are like a seed.
Yeah.
They have a gestation period. They'll lie in the soil of the heart
That's
and
good.
wait until timing. God's timing is perfect, and the timing came. And that was actually a pretty incredible story too. How that forced it into existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and dive a little bit into that.
You want to?
be
Sure.
good.
So the Lord told me in 1996, build an orphanage. Life happens, sickness, all kinds of things. And it wasn't until a cancer journey that we had to walk through with Jeff that it didn't really happen again in me. I mean, I kind of had forgotten it. And then this again, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything for a couple of years, because even though we didn't have an orphanage, years we would go and do humanitarian work.
Sure.
We would go feed and clothe and go into schools and prisons and that kind of thing. So it wasn't until 2012, that dream didn't come. I mean, it hit me again.
Yeah.
Because one day Jeff said, we need to have a meeting. And he was sick. It was gloomy all around us, people sick all around us. And he was skinny and yellow and had a bunch of staples in his stomach from a surgery. And I said, let's just meet, because, we were always together, because I wasn't leaving him. I was staying by his side. And so he said, no, this is different. I need to say something. And so we scheduled a day 2 or 3 days later, and he stood there in his hospital gown, weak. And he looked at me and he said, what if the doctors are wrong? What if I get to live and not die?
Wow.
What if we get to go be missionaries back in the Philippines? And what if, all of these what ifs. Well, the longer he talked, the stronger his voice got, and something started inside of me again. And I thought, what if? What if now's the time? And at the end of that conversation, he said, if I get to live and not die and I get out of this hospital, we're gonna live life different. We're not going to allow fear to stop us from walking through a door we know God has opened.
Wow,
well, that stuck in me.
Yeah.
And I longed for the day that God would heal him and we would be able to go back to the Philippines. And we did see that day. And I'll never forget that time when he was healed. God healed him.
Praise God.
But the team of doctors said, you've wanted to go back for so long, and we haven't allowed you to go back to the Philippines, but we feel it's time. They said, so go change your world. Those were the last words the team of doctors said that day, and so we did. And so in 1996, God told me to do that. Well, when we were able to go back in 2018, we were sitting with some friends, and I just kind of blurted out, I'm opening an orphanage next year. And he even looked at me, and we were shocked, because, it's kind of a big deal to do something like that.
Big step.
in another country. And so our friends were like, we have something to show you. Come with us tomorrow, clear your schedule. We're going to pick you up. We're going to drive you an hour and a half south of Manila. Let's go. And so we did. And they drove us on this property that was so peaceful. And they said in 1996, God told us to buy this property because a ministry was going to come to us.
Wow.
And we're going to give this property to that ministry. But they said nobody came for all of these years. And so they turned that property into just prayer and fasting for our church leaders there in our churches. And so for all of those years, just church people would go out there and pray and fast. Wow. And when you drive on that property, even today, you can feel the prayers of God's people. And what better place to bring some orphans
100%.
than a beautiful property. And you can see probably by the pictures that it's such a beautiful, green, lush, safe place.
Sure.
And that's what God said to do.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, and just to see all that line out to where so long ago, something in the waiting.
Yeah, right.
God knows.
God knows.
Right.
God knows.
Sometimes you do your best work after everybody's written you off.
Right.
And that's what happened for us. It was over, stage 4 cancer, incurable. And then all of this happens. The best part of our life came after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't give up until God does.
Absolutely.
God ain't going to quit.
Yeah. And here at LifeChurch, we got to see a little bit of that journey, because I remember you coming years ago.
Right.
Yep.
And the situation you were in and stuff like that. And then to come back last Sunday.
Right.
And to do what you did and look at it, it's pretty incredible to watch.
Right.
Miracle.
Well,
That's
God
awesome.
is
It's
great.
a miracle.
God is good.
Amen.
All the time. All the time.
That's right.
Right? Is that what they say in the when you
That's
preach?
what they say.
You get a little grimy in your voice. But so here we are. You're blessed with property. You got the opportunity to set things in motion. This burden that's been on you for quite some time, and it's all coming to fruition. Everything's all the pieces are starting to be laid upon. So what's the long-term goal for Hope Village International? What's the vision, the long-term game?
Well, our current property has a building that can accommodate up to 34 girls, ages 3 to 12. And we're looking at, on that same property, building 7 homes, and each home can handle 7 children, can accommodate 7 children. And it's a property that's a little over 7 acres.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful property.
Yeah.
And I think the max of that property is going to end up with about probably 100 children on that property. But we have already had a couple other properties offered to our foundation.
Oh, wow.
Once we get this one finished, we're going to move on to some other properties. And our goal is to get some corporate sponsors to come alongside, because we don't really talk about this a whole lot, because people can easily just say big old things and sometimes talk is cheap until
Right.
it gets expensive.
Until it gets expensive, and then
But-
your pockets are hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
But what we have decided with our life is we want to bring this to a point where we have at least 5,000 children that are in the various homes at any one time. And it's our properties are for adoption. Our homes are for adoption.
Okay.
And so we're excited because it looks like in the next probably 1 to 2 months, we're hiring 2 social workers.
Awesome.
And the property is almost finished. The buildings are almost finished. And we're going to be able to have some children very soon. And then we're going to get started on our next buildings and just start bringing them in. The situation in that one country of the Philippines, just to let you know, I mean, this is all around the world.
Yeah.
We're having a serious problem with children. But in that one country, the population's about 110 million, but they said that out of that are about 2 million orphaned or abandoned children,
Wow.
which is a number that is staggering. And you would think with a number that big that there would be many, many orphanages,
Right.
but there's not. In the entire country that are recognized by the DSWD, the government agency in the Philippines responsible for this, they told us there are 26 orphanages. And most of them are not for adoption. So if you're an orphan looking for your forever home,
Right.
statistically, it's zero.
Wow.
0% chance.
That hurts. That
That
tugs at
hurts.
you.
Yep.
And if people could just see the need
Sure.
and then also realize how easy it is to make a difference.
Right.
It really is easy to make a difference. And a lot of these kids, they're so smart, they just want a chance at life. If you give them a chance,
Yep.
they flourish.
Oh, 100%.
Education, a lot of them don't have a chance to go to school, but when they get a chance, they're not the kind that are like grumbling about doing homework or whatnot. They dive into it with a passion because they realize this is my way out of this life
Yeah.
that we're stuck in.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. I firsthand being a foster parent, like giving a child a stable home,
right.
where they have confidence to know that their future is a little brighter than what having to worry about the
Right.
here and now. I mean, they thrive. I
Right.
mean, the difference is night and day.
That's right.
A lot of the kids, it's just their situation. It's just what they're given. But if they're to get an opportunity to have this chance to have stability in their life, to have a loving home, a home that actually cares about them and is helping them towards their future, they thrive. I mean,
right.
Yeah, we find that these kids aren't wanting iPads and video games.
Right.
They're wanting a clean towel and
yeah,
school supplies.
that's
and
awesome.
Things like that. It's not hard.
Yeah, and I think it's so different too. Because I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about my little guy, and he had a rough childhood and stuff like that, and he's with us now, and we're taking great care of him. But I mean, he's become dependent on the iPad. He's become dependent on the luxuries of what we have. But I know he would have just been fine just to be given clean towel and everything like that. And these children, like, going into that situation, it doesn't take much to make an impact in their life. You know what I mean?
I'm not knocking the iPad.
Oh.
Very, very, very usable and all that. But I think of one little girl when we fed them ice cream, remember? And there were several of the children not eating the ice cream. And so they asked them why they were not eating the ice cream, and they were saving it to take home to their families. It's simple
But they
things
never
like
had
that.
ice cream
They
until
never
the
had
house
ice
melts.
cream.
Oh,
yeah.
So we had,
didn't know they had a time
They
limit on
didn't
it.
know.
right. We
yeah.
had to tell them, you can't save your ice cream. We'll give your family ice cream, but it's just the simple
Aw.
things.
But no matter how hungry they are, they will
Yeah.
not eat all of their food because they're always thinking about their little brother or little sister or somebody else that's hungry also, that I'm going to eat just this much and then I'm going to save some to share.
It's true.
Wouldn't it be great if we were that way?
Right.
Where we said, God, you've been good to us, but I'm going to save some because somebody else needs it too.
Sure.
I think that's the best way to live life is for others.
Right.
And that to us, I would never want to go through what we went through again,
Right.
but it allowed us to have a new perspective on life.
Sure.
Selling everything you have in your home, and I loved our kitchen, and I'm called a yuppie chef. I had all the gadgets and everything, but when God calls you,
Yeah.
you just sell that stuff, and now most everything we have is in a storage somewhere, and we don't see it for years at a time, and we
Sure.
don't miss it.
Right.
You really can live on less and be happy. Happiness is not stuff. It's not circumstances. It comes from within. And gratitude is something that doesn't come to you. It comes from you.
Sure.
And so we see with these children, they have nothing, but they have gratitude.
Yeah.
And because of that, anything they get, their day is so bright. It's like, wow, this is wonderful. All you had was a hot meal, which we get all the time.
Right.
But the reason I think there's so much depression and we can't sleep at night, we can't rest, is because we're not satisfied with anything in life.
Yeah. I think the purity of a child is something to almost, when we get older, almost want and desire again, to have that mindset. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because I feel like as you grow and stuff like that, a lot of it gets muddied. But but just, to not neglect the children, because you can learn from them,
Right.
to have that kind of mind process and thinking of ways to help others and
Right.
be so tender-hearted, impressionable but tender-hearted at
Right.
the same time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
That could be what Jesus meant when
Yeah.
he said, unless you become, and that word become was converted, unless you're converted and become as one of these, my little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not asking us to remain a child. He's asking us to become one in some way. Maybe it's that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the simplicity.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the fact that it doesn't take much to make them happy. If you want to be happy more, be happy easier.
Yeah. So as these viewers and listeners are tuning in, and it's tugging at their hearts, and they're feeling like, hey, I want to be a part of this, where can they go to learn more and to kind of learn all about your work, but at the same time how to give and be a part of this amazing opportunity?
Well, they can go to our website, hopevillageinternational.org. We're on Facebook, and we are on Instagram. HopeVillage.international on Instagram, and Hope Village International on Facebook. And if they have more serious questions, they can reach out through our website at an email address there, and we'll love to get back to them.
Yeah, and we'll have that on the graphics and everything like that, or if you're listening online, it'll be in the description as well. So
Yeah, so on the website there is a giving portal, and we have two different focuses right now. Of course, we're trying to finish the property, the buildings, all of that. It's quite a it's quite a facility that we look at it and we go, wow, how'd this happen? Because when you start, you can't even imagine it's going to turn out this way.
It's amazing.
And then what we really have a need of is monthly sponsors, because we are to the point now where we're in the nesting mode. When a lady's about to have a baby,
Right.
she starts getting everything right for that baby. We're in that nesting mode because we know the children are coming
Sure.
very soon. So we need monthly sponsors to help keep this going. We're going to need at least 19 full-time staff at that one property.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for 365 sponsors that will sponsor. It's basically $50 a month that will be able to pretty much run that one property.
Okay. Wow. Well, you can check that out online.
Right.
At hopevillageinternational.org.
Right.
And thank you so much, the founders and directors of Hope Village International, Reverend Jeff and Brenda Mallory. Thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for what you do.
Well, we're glad to be here. Love this podcast. You guys are all about excellence.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a great opportunity. So thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. I appreciate it.
So much for joining us on the LCI podcast.
You can listen more on our Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and be sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel, LifeChurch Presents, for more future content.
Again, thank you, and we'll see you next time.